our next panel is sports tech investment trends and opportunities, and it includes a very special guest, two very special guests. So we're going to give it back to Tim for a brief moment as a part of our introduction. Hey, Tim.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you. Hey, Josh. What an incredible session with Playside. Very inspirational. And coming up next, we have indeed two very special guests. And I think this is a moment we've been all looking forward very much. An incredible conversation, unique conversation and insights between Lance Armstrong and Melanie Strong, both partners at Next Ventures around the sports tech investment space. They have loads of experience to share and great insights to share with us. So I'd like to welcome Melanie and Lance on stage. And Josh, enjoy.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you so much. Our next panel is powered by Next Ventures, and it's one you probably had circled on your itinerary. Look, this next man needs no introduction. I'll give him a brief one anyway. A globally known cyclist and endurance athlete, Lance Armstrong remains passionate about the benefits of an active lifestyle. Through his decades of competitive racing, Lance has developed extensive worldwide contacts in sports, fitness, and health markets, regularly being invited to review early-stage companies, including DocuSign and Uber. Please welcome partner at Next Ventures, Lance Armstrong.
Hey, good morning. How you guys doing?
Good morning. We're doing well, Lance. Thank you so much. And
Good.
Joining Lance, as Tim had mentioned, is the managing partner at Next Ventures, Melanie Strong. And Mel spent over 17 years at Nike leading international marketing teams across running, women's soccer, football, and training. She worked on all of Nike's digital sports and tracking products, advising their new business incubator, Valiant Labs, and was most recently vice president and GM for their skateboarding business, which is very cool. And she also sits on the board of Pocket Outdoor Media and an advisor of the photography app VSCO. Please once again give a warm welcome to Melanie Strong.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good evening, I think, for a lot of you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we got all the time zones covered, morning, evening, afternoon. So it's great to have you both. And just to get the ball rolling here, share with us a little bit about Next Ventures and kind of the sports tech investment space that you all work in.
Mel, you want me to take it?
Yeah, go for it.
I always, just so everybody knows, I most of the time defer to Mel on most things. She's, don't be mistaken here. She's the badass on this team. Look, we are obviously super bullish on this space. It's health and wellness has been a passion of ours, the entire team, for basically our entire lives. But we're now seeing really three things happen. One, we're seeing a younger generation coming through, call it 15 to 20-year-olds that care more about their health and wellness than any other generation before them. Two, this overlay or burden or situation with COVID and how that has forced almost everybody to reassess their health and wellness and longevity and reconsider and hit reset, which is actually a great thing for society. And then three, and finally, innovation. I think this is, I've been doing this a long time. Innovation has sometimes overpromised and underdelivered, and I think we're now at a point in time when we're making real progress and can affect real change. Right? This idea of hacking things, whether it's performance or recovery or clarity or sleep, we're finally there. And so this is where we play, and this is. It's a great time, and if you roll up all three of those things, there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, and I'd add, Josh, I think the thing that we all saw, the whole Next Ventures team, sort of in our previous careers, was that there is a lot of innovation in this space, but it's not accessible to everyone. So, if you're a high performer, if you're an elite athlete, certainly you have access to the best product, technology, coaching, services. Or if you can afford to pay for those products and technologies, then you have access. But for the larger population, it's just hard to reach, hard to pay for, hard to access or understand. And so part of our mission is taking those innovations that may have been reserved for those privileged few in the past and helping those businesses access anyone who wants to live a healthier life. So that's part of the mission that I think is really inspiring for all of us and was the reason why we created the fund.
Outstanding. Yeah, not all of us could be world-class athletes, but obviously, Lance, your experience as an athlete What has that lended to you in this career as an investor? Are there overlapping traits that allow you to succeed in this stage of your life as well?
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously there's, from my side, from the technical side, I feel like I still have, even at almost 50 years old, I still have the ability to go out and, quote unquote, pressure test ideas, whether, in this space, right? But as an athlete or as a competitor, I mean, at the end of the day, we run a fund and we manage other people's money. And so what do they want, right? They want a return on their money, on their investment. And so that's a competitive game. There's a lot of people that do that and play there. But I think we all come at this from the lens of an athlete that essentially is looking up at a scoreboard that's important, right? And so it's we've yet to really, I mean, we're in the early beginnings of this game for us as a fund, but at the end of the day, we can talk about our thesis and talk about this space, but at the end of the day, our obligation is to return capital to our investors, and it's not dissimilar to any other competitive sport.
Yeah, I think there are some interesting similarities around the athlete mindset. There's been a lot of research more recently about how people who play sports growing up become great leaders. They understand what it means to be part of a high-performing team. And we see a lot of that in our space too, because I'm sure a lot of the folks who are watching and part of this summit are probably, if not today, athletes, were athletes at some point in their lives. And there's something about that mindset of an athlete. We see it in a lot of the founders we work with that makes them a little bit different. They have more endurance. They have more of that competitive edge. I also think they're really open to feedback. I think that's a very important part of what we do. And so I think our own experiences, I'd never performed at anything better than like a mediocre level. But I also think that mindset that each one of our team members brings to Next Ventures makes us a bit unique. And then we look for that in the companies we work with as well.
Yeah, I lived in the intramural sports space in high school and in college, so nothing too fancy either there. Yeah. But Mel, I wanted to follow up because I know you're very immersed in the space with women in sports technology in particular, and what you see as the emerging trends in that space, maybe also in the next 3 to 5 years when it comes to health, sports, wellness, in particular for women in sports.
Yeah, I'm super aware of the research, the data on both sides of the table, whether as an investor. I think only 8% of investors, at least here in the US, are female. And actually this year, we've taken quite a step backwards in terms of the number of female founders who are earning VC capital. So there's a huge opportunity there. And then as it relates to the sports technology space, only within, and I saw this through the filter of Nike for the last 20 years, and then as a sports writer, and then an athlete in high school and college myself before that, there hasn't been a lot of research specifically on female athletes. Diet, hormones, sleep, everything kind of starts from the male perspective and testing on male athletes. And then at some point, women get in there and start to understand and provide feedback on that innovation. But I'm looking forward to and seeing more in this space of those innovations that actually start with a female athlete problem and then may or may not scale to serving men. And I think that's okay too. But I'm really encouraged. I think we have a lot of work to do coming out of this year of COVID, where I think this industry has taken a step back into the space they're familiar in and familiar with. But I'm hoping that over the next year or two, we can be part of the many, I think, voices in this space who are trying to make sure we're innovating for those who haven't been represented in the sports tech space in the past.
And Lance, if you can follow up with that as well, and just maybe innovating to those underserved communities and the sectors in sports tech that don't get as much traditional love and investments necessarily. Yeah,
I mean that's a big part of our thesis. I mean, we come at this from and I know it's in this day and age, it's almost easy to sort of draft off of this, but it's in our DNA, right? It's stuff that we truly care about. Obviously, Mel brings a passion for this space, but we don't see, as a fund, we don't. I tell the team, I was like, I don't care if they're Martians and they're green. it doesn't matter, right? We don't see color, we don't see gender, we don't. For us, they're all potential teammates, and so we just come at this with eyes wide open and certainly no biases and ready to support the best of the best.
And Lance, for you, not only are you an investor, but you're also a content creator. You have 2 podcasts, which I'm envious of there, where you find the time to do that. But I'm wondering how that frames how you look at some investments and how content creators in particular can gain that competitive edge and stand out in a crowded space, whether it's podcasting or any new media venture.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, it's one of our secret strengths, right? And we speak to it every day. It was, in fact, I guess, really the genesis of the fund, because the show grew so quickly and the audience grew so large that deal flow just started to happen. And it was none of it by design. We did the show to have fun and to come at sports and especially cycling from just a raw perspective and a really honest, sort of unfiltered perspective. And people loved it, right? People started downloading the show and listening and watching and through all the channels, and right on the heels of that, the deal flow began. And so the thing we speak to is this idea of our flywheel, and it's real, but we're not unique like that. There's a lot of folks in this space that have big audiences, that get deal flow, that invest, that that then talk about their investments on the show. But it's been fun to do. And just to touch on one, I can't take any credit for the show. I just sit down and riff a little bit, and then there's a whole team and crew of people over there that produce the show and upload the show and sell the show and all the things. So I literally just sit there. So I wouldn't be too envious. It's not very hard. We just actually, and I'll just shameless plug, we did a show the other day for these guys. And there's a whole, I don't know how big the entire field is, but there's a rowing race, this is the kind of stuff I just can't understand. These guys are going to row across the Atlantic, a 4-man team. So we talked to this team called Latitude 35. So it's just things like that are, to me, is so weird. Like, why would you do that? But that makes fascinating content, right? And get to ask these guys questions like, well, what happens if you got to go to the bathroom? I don't know. So it's that part. That's an easy question. But then at one point they told me they do it most of the time with no clothes on, which was, you got to listen to the show to believe it. But that stuff's fun.
The hard-hitting questions only. That's what we want to know. That's what the people are thinking.
Yeah, we ask very tough questions.
The 2 podcasts, by the way, are called The Move and The Forward. And, Mel, you touched on your experience in Nike, and I wanted to go back to that. Obviously, such a powerful brand. I just bought new Nike running shoes for the holidays. When you think of branding, though, for these companies or investments that, in sports tech that you want to be involved with, how do they differentiate and try to get sticky with the consumer user?
Yeah. It's, I've been a VC for a year and a half. And I think early on, I had a lot of trepidation, maybe self-doubt about whether someone with my background could actually do this, because I clearly don't look like your typical VC. I don't have I just read an article yesterday about something like in the US, more than 50% of VCs either have Stanford or Harvard degrees, and I have neither. I spent most of my life in marketing and running businesses at Nike. So, when I wanted to figure out how to contribute in a different way, knowing I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life at Nike, I had a lot of fear about what my experience could do for companies in this space. And I'm really happy to feel like my marketing experience, my brand building experience can be valuable. And so I think what we look for are brands that have something unique. It may be early days. We invest in kind of the late seed Series A space. So these are founders who have already spent some time building a thing, and there's either some beta testing results coming back or maybe some revenue being generated. But it is really cool to see founders who often have like a technical background, maybe haven't built a brand before, figure out how to create and elicit emotion through the thing they're building. And that's part of what we love to do in terms of rolling up our sleeves with our portfolio companies is, what do you want to stand for that's bigger than the thing you're building? Because I think we all learned, I'm sure many of you who are listening, experienced this yourselves during COVID. The brands that had spent the time building something enduring survived COVID. Even if you had to stop producing your product, even if you had to shift gears because of anything impacting your business related to COVID, those companies that had spent the time to build a brand, I think were able to survive this last year and thrive in some cases because they were listening to their consumer. And so I think I'm really grateful that I learned that at Nike, the value of spending time listening to who you serve and also being thoughtful about who you don't and what you're going to stand for and what you're not, and being really comfortable with the edges around that. And then listening nonstop to that consumer 24/7 and being humble about where you're meeting their needs and where you're not, and shifting gears pretty quickly to be able to improve. So it's been a lot of fun for me as a marketer in this space, understanding that yes, I can add value here, and that I can help for the next generation of Nikes grow.
That's such a good point, Mel, being nimble, but also knowing what you stand for, knowing what you believe, what the brand stands for too. And, speaking of COVID, and Lance, I'll plug the podcast in because I was listening to the one with Matthew McConaughey that you just produced. And I had heard that you gave up alcohol for multiple months during COVID, and just a way that I think people change their habits or create better habits during this time. And I think more broadly, what I want to kind of ask is what innovations or problem solving have you both seen during this COVID pandemic, during this crazy year in the sports tech space, maybe emerge, that whether they were going to emerge eventually and accelerated, or things that kind of came out of the unfortunate circumstances that we've all lived through.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, you brought up this hiatus from alcohol, which was an interesting and great. I mean, it was sort of contrarian because as COVID started to rage, the data showed you that people started drinking more and more. I went the other way, but we are super proud to be early day investors with Aura, and here's a great example of a company who just skyrocketed amidst this pandemic. Whether it's obviously just their meat and potatoes of tracking people's sleep, but this idea around tracking their body temperature and seeing the onset of COVID was a blessing for them. As tragic as it's been for so many people, it was good for their business. And then as you start to play with your habits and your lifestyle, whether it is all the things, and again to go back to this idea of hacking certain things, whether it's alcohol or light exposure or your diet or the bed that you sleep in, Aura has been a fun one for us to play with, and we're super honored to be an early investor there and watch their continued growth.
Wonderful. I think we only got a couple minutes left, sadly. So I'll give you both the last word on just what trends, maybe the next 3 to 5 years, you're looking forward to seeing in this space, and what you're excited to see and invest in ultimately.
Yeah, I think on my end, there is something about the shared experience, the global experience of living through a pandemic that I think makes this space really special. And we all believed in this space prior to COVID, obviously, but the value of your overall health and wellness has certainly been in the spotlight since COVID started. And one of the, I guess, unexpected outcomes for me, knowing that in the past in the elite athlete space, it wasn't always okay to talk about mental health as an aspect of overall performance. And because we have all gone a little crazy in the last, 8-10 months, I'm really hopeful that there will be more dialogue around mental health and wellness, talking about depression, talking about self-doubt. Every athlete I've ever worked with has had those experiences, and yet I don't think that we have created a place where it's okay to talk about it and then innovated in that space. So I would say that's one area that maybe a year ago we wouldn't have thought we would have seen a lot of innovation in, but we already are, and I'm really hopeful that that's going to stay.
Yep. I guess my big question going, if you look out over the next 5 years, is just it's a broad question, but does anybody go back to a gym, right? This experience of working out with a community in a shared space obviously has been really, really negatively affected. And at the same time, you have the rise of the Pelotons and and the mirrors and the tonals and all the other concepts that are sort of chasing this Peloton model. I'm super curious to see, and I guess I have a view on it, which I don't necessarily need to share, but I'm curious if people ultimately go back to that space, right? Or if we've all now decided that, you know what, this is fine. I'll just do this at home and look at this screen, and that's enough for me, right? And so I don't know the answer. I actually like going outside and being around other people and being in that setting, but I just don't know that we'll go back there.
Yeah, so many interesting questions, and what the trends will emerge, the ones that have already had. The home gym trend is certainly one we'll be watching, as I think everyone I know has a Peloton now, which is crazy. But this has been outstanding. Lance, Melanie, thank you so much for joining us here at Sports Tech Nation, and have a great rest of your day. Really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Josh. Thanks for having us.